All right, so in this one, I want to add a few more things to this landing page and how it functions. Now, the first thing is whether or not I want to actually show that navigation bar. Like, we could have navigation items in here, but do I even want it to show up? That's one of the things. And then the next thing would be what format I want this to be. Like, so right now I'm going to leave it as the text here and then maybe a video here. And then below, if I change the format, it will be text here, maybe right in the middle, and then perhaps the video below it, or the video right below this join us, and then the content below that. So I want to have the ability to do those things. And then finally, the color of the navigation bar if I want to have it there. So let's go ahead and talk about these things in the models. So the model itself will just say show nav as a field. And we'll do models.boolean field default equaling to true. And then we'll do nav color equals to models.char field, and we'll do a max length of, let's say, 6. And we'll put the default in here as the string of 0000, or rather 000 with the hash tag in front of it. So we'll put max length at 7. I'll show you exactly how that's done in just a moment too. And then the next thing would be layout. And we'll do models.char field and max length equaling to 20. And we'll do choices equaling to, well, let's create some layout choices. And it's a tuple. And inside there, we'll do standard and then we'll do stacked. Stacked and standard. Okay, choices is that. Default equals to standard. All right, so now that we've got that, let's go ahead and run some migrations here. We'll do python manage.py, make migrations. Actually, one thing I do want to add is video embed. And we'll do models.text field. And I'll do null equals to true and blank equals to true. Do that as well. Make migrations. Python manage.py migrate. And I'll do get status, get add, get add, get commit, update page layout, format, get push Heroku master, and Heroku run python manage.py migrate. Okay, another thing is this right here, this hashtag, I want to make sure that when I save this nav color, it does add a hashtag to it. And I also probably want to make sure that the length is 7. So I want to add a validator in here. So I'll say validators equals to some validators, and we'll say def layout validator, and it's going to take in the value, whatever that value is, and we'll say if value, or if the first part of value, if value of 0 equals to the hashtag, then we'll return that value. Rather, if it's not equal to that, we want to raise a validation. So we will import from django.core.exceptions, import validation error. So if it's not equal to that, then we will raise validation error must start with that. And then if the length of value equals to 3 or the length of value equals to 6, then we'll return the value. Otherwise, we'll raise validation error, incorrect length. And then we'll run some migrations and migrate. Make sure you do that. Yours probably will show it. We run the server back. We come back in here. And we've got the nav color now showing up. I'm going to just change it to FFF, hit save and continue. Notice it says incorrect length. Of course, that means that's because that we have, oops, this should say return value. This should actually be 4 or 6, not, or excuse me, 4 or 7, because it will include that hashtag there. And these are hex values. Just keep that in mind. So if I hit return, this time it actually does it. So nav color, I don't want it to be white, but we will see what that looks like in just a second. So back on our Bootstrap local server running, it is running now. We'll go into that page and we'll take a look by using this nav color. So back into home, I'm going to go ahead and just put in a style block in here. So we'll do block styles and in block. And in this case, we'll say nav bar inverse. And this would only be if page object nav, we called it nav color is not equal to. So if it's not equal to the default, we will put it in and say background color is that, using the curly brackets. There we go. And if, and I'll put the style tag above it. Close that off. Since we have this block, I need to add it into my base.html, and we're going to put it right below the style sheet portion. Of course, we don't need that part. We just need our styles here. Okay, good. And the next thing is I'll get rid of this optional theme. I no longer need that, especially with what I'm doing. So if I refresh it here, notice that the knock HQ has changed. So I could do all sorts of styling changes here, but I'm not actually going to go through that. I'm going to just come in here, inspect element, and we'll just change that nav bar from white to, like, let's leave it as like a dark red. So 8200 there. Go back into this and we'll hit save, refresh, and there we go. So now we've got a more dynamically styled HQ portion. I do want to actually change the border to be the same thing. So right now I have background color, and I'll just say border color. Oops, we want to put that border, and there we go. So now that black goes away. Okay, cool. So now we've got that. Let's go ahead and put that video embed in here. So inside of this Jumbotron, we have the container. So what I'm going to do now is div class equals to column small 6. So half of the actual Jumbotron will be dedicated to that itself. So it comes over here. We want to actually add in a row here too. So div class equals to row. Close off the div. Let's tab these in a little bit. And there we go. And then finally, another div class equals to column small 6. Close that off. And in this case, I'm going to do page object video embed. So I'm going to say if that. Then we'll show this. And if. And we'll put that video embed in here, and we'll just say safe. Now the nice thing about video embeds is we can go to Get Bootstrap into our components, and we can actually do a responsive embed, which is using this. So I'm going to go ahead and copy that, paste that in here, bring it over, cut this out, put this as the video embed itself. Notice it says embed responsive item. We might actually need to work with that, so we'll leave it as this for just a moment. So we'll save that. And then let's go ahead and go into YouTube. And we are going to go ahead and jump in and grab a video from our Hit Startup channel that's going to be documenting this whole process that will eventually use all this code. We're going to grab that embed in there, which we will use inside of our model. So let's go into our model and video embed, hit save, refresh in here, and now I've got this video actually playing. It's actually going to show in here. This is a really good start. So that's one of the layouts, right? That is the standard layout. So now what we want is the non-standard layout, which is just going to change generally how this whole thing comes about. So what I can do here is, instead of changing a ton of stuff, I want to actually add in that nav bar stuff. So I'm going to get rid of the login itself, and I'll also put in the nav bar into a new file, and I'm going to put this down into my templates here, and I'll call it navbar.html. Paste that in. So now there's our nav bar itself. And then in the page object, we'll say if page object.navbar show, or let's see what it was again. And that's going to be show nav. Then we'll just say include navbar.html. Save that. Refresh in here. Showing nav is there. We'll get rid of that nav. Hit save. Refresh in there. The nav bar goes away, but there's still that little space there. So again, with my styles, I need to come back up here. I'm just going to tab this one in. So now it's going to be if not nav bar. We're going to have to do the opposite of what's in our CSS, which was this right here. So if not show, padding top 0, padding bottom 0, or we can leave it at 20. But really the padding top part is what's important, and that brings it right up. So now we can actually test this with a nav bar or without one. And of course that nav color is coming through. And there we go. So we could do that same color with the Jumbotron as well. But before I even jump into that in particular, I'm going to have it where I have two different layouts. And this one, I'm going to use this for the inside of the template itself. We'll have two different layouts that are related to this. So if page object, layout equals to stacked, then we'll do something there. Otherwise, we'll have our standard layout. And I'm going to leave the container or the footer stuff in there. So I'll say, and if this footer stuff, I'm going to go ahead and cut this out and just bring it into base.html underneath the block content itself, because it is now basically self-contained. So we save that, and let's go ahead and change the layout to stacked. We'll hit save. We go back and refresh, and oops, we need to make sure we save our home.html. Otherwise, that nav bar is going to show up twice. Notice it is different, but it's not different enough. So what we really want is put this if page layout equals to stacked well above even the container itself. So there we go. So that's all that content. So now inside of snippet, we will do standard layout.html, and then another one called stacked layout.html. That standard layout is going to come from home, which was inside of here. And I'll go ahead and cut that out there. Standard layout, paste that in. Okay, so back into home. Then if it's the standard layout, we'll say include pages, snippets, standard layout.html with page object equaling a page object and form equaling a form. Because remember, we actually have that form in here, which is right there. So we still need to pass that in. I'm going to do this same idea with the stacked layout. There we go. So now we can actually adjust the stack layout inside of it without getting too complicated with how it works. So the stack layout, we're going to have the text and stuff go all the way across, and I'll do text center here. So this is just going to be slightly different. And then the video embed, I'm going to cut this out, and I'm going to put it underneath our join row. I'm going to make that in its entire row, and then I'll have the video its own row as well. And then finally, just a last row for our container. Oops, we called it snippets, not snippet. Refresh, and then here's our now stacked layout, which is a lot closer to what we want. But let's make sure that we have our join us. This part should be inside of its own row, and it looks like it was already starting to be in its own row. So I'm actually going to put it inside and close the rows off like this. So that's the join row itself. Refresh in there. This should actually have the join us stuff related on it, but it's actually allowing the video to show up as well, and that's because of how the form was rendered. So bring that back up. We put that in the wrong spot, basically. Put that form there, and there we go. So the join is now there. The row for the video, we are going to put that only if it exists. Okay. So there's the video row, and we will put this still as 6, but I'll do column small offset of 3. So now that video is now in there. Okay, good. And then finally, the content below that is really showing up just fine. So this stuff right here, it looks like we have a few extra divs coming through here. All right. Cool. So the video itself, I am going to add one thing to it, and I'll just add a class of the Bootstrap image responsive into the iframe. Right in there. Save. Refresh. Looks like the component didn't change really, so let's change it to 12. And there we go. So it actually does work. I'll change it to 8, and then the offset being 2, so we can see that. And now it's showing us a little bit more of what the content will look like depending on how we want to change it. So we went from stacked to standard. We save that. Standard goes back, and it's right here. Okay, cool. So it's definitely going along the lines of being able to change depending on how we see fit. This is a good start. Now that we've got this, let's go ahead and run our dump data stuff. So I'm going to just scroll up. Well, actually, let's just run it to dump data. And this is going to be pages.page, format JSON, and then -- indent for, we want to put that into pages.json, get status, get add -- all, get commit, and we'll call this message being pages, format, and layout. Git push Heroku master and Heroku run Python manage.py load data pages.json. Hit enter. We'll let that load. Okay, so it looks like that data was loaded. If I go back in here into my home page, I hit refresh, and there we go. So we actually have it working. And if I changed that first page there, from Knock HQ again, from the layout being standard to stacked, I hit save, go back to that home page, and there we go. So it's actually showing 2 subtle different ways on doing the Knock HQ stuff. So if you have any questions on what we did here, let us know. Otherwise, let's keep going.